Now, as Paul Hawkins highlighted earlier on, the humanitarian crisis in Romania, of course, there are many organisations, charities and religious groups who are all doing their bit to help the millions of Ukrainian refugees.
One such group is the ACT, or ACT Alliance, which is a coalition of 137 churches, and its Director of Communications, Simon Chambers, joins us now. Good morning, Simon. Thank you very much for joining us. First of all, tell us what your organisation does and who you're made up of.
Thank you. So ACT Alliance, ACT stands for Action by Churches Together, and we are, as you said, a network of 137 members around the world, which are churches and church-based agencies that engage in humanitarian relief, development, and advocacy work together. So we work in about 125 countries, and right now we're very focused on the work happening in Ukraine and the surrounding countries, providing humanitarian relief to those displaced by the war.
What is quite refreshing about this, Simon, is that you're putting your money where your mouth is, as we would say here in the UK. You know, you're actually doing what, you know, it would be argued Jesus would want you to do. You are putting yourselves out there and helping those in the most need.
Absolutely, that's the role that we take, and it's something that we do because of our faith. It's because of who we are as Christians that we work in what's called diakonia, which is working in service to the world. And so this is part of how we do service, is that we take care of those who are the most vulnerable in situations like war, famine, disasters, those sorts of situations.
Logistically, what's the biggest challenge for your organisation right now?
The biggest challenge right now, I think, is trying to get supplies where they're needed. We know that a lot of places within Ukraine in particular, it's very difficult to buy food and other items that are needed. So we've been working with, for example, in Hungary, Hungarian Interchurch Aid, one of our members there, has been working with their government and also with the government of Ukraine and Transcarpathia region there to be able to transfer goods across the border so that we can get food and medical supplies to where they're needed. So in the 2 weeks of the war so far, they've been able to ship 278 tons of food and needed items, as well as about 7 million euros worth of medical supplies into Ukraine, into Lviv and the Hungarian-Ukrainian border, where they're able to support IDPs, internally displaced people, as well as refugees fleeing into Hungary.
I mean, it's a huge effort so far, it has to be said. But in all of this, I mean, you're responding to immediate need, understandably so at this time. Is it still in the sort of focus of the ACT Alliance, so that this actually could turn into a very long-term project?
Yes, this is most likely going to be a long-term project, and this is in fact something that our members have been doing for many years already. Hungarian Interchurch Aid, who I mentioned earlier, they've been working in Ukraine since 1993. So we haven't just arrived because the war is happening. We've already been there and been working in that country. And we've had a number of members who've been responding since the situation in Crimea, the conflict there in 2014. So for the last 8 years, they've been supporting refugees and communities that have been impacted by the conflict in the region. And we will continue to be there supporting these communities in the long term. So right now, the needs in the immediate term are those life-saving things of food, water, hygiene, medical supplies. But in the longer term, as people are displaced and become refugees, they need support for rebuilding their livelihoods, for dealing with the psychosocial issues that they have by facing the violence and the upheaval in their lives that they've had to face. And the churches who are members of ACT Alliance are already there and will continue to be there supporting these refugees, these IDPs, in the situations that they find themselves in the months and years to come.
Do you have some frustration, given that the ACT Alliance has already been working in this area for so long? Do you have some frustration that this situation in that region has been allowed to escalate to some extent politically, so we find ourselves in this awful position today?
We never like to see situations where conflict is happening, and in particular, we don't like to see situations where civilians are targets of conflict. And so we are calling for an end to violence and a peace process to be in place to help to de-escalate what's happening there. But our role really is in the humanitarian sphere at this point, which is to be impartial and neutral towards what's going on politically and to provide aid to those who are being impacted by the conflict.
How important is faith at a time like this? I mean, not just for you, not just for your volunteers and for those who are contributing to what you're doing, but also, do you think, for those people who are crossing the borders and escaping this awful situation? And indeed, whatever their faith may be, how important is it to have something to try to support these people as they face all of this?
Faith, I think, is a really important aspect of life in general, but particularly in situations like this. Faith is something that you can hold on to in the difficult times. It is something that can get you through when it feels like you can't do anymore. One of the things that churches have as an advantage when working in humanitarian situations is that they're also able to provide I want to say spiritual support to people, although not necessarily only in a Christian context, because we do work with people of all faiths and none. But because local faith leaders are in communities, they know the people in the communities and the needs in the communities, they're often able to provide support through prayer, through connection, through empathy, through conversation. And all of those are key parts of what needs to happen as well. And I certainly have found in a lot of humanitarian situations that where people do have a faith, they have something that serves as a foundation, that they are a little more resilient and able to get through. I don't want to talk in platitudes, but I do want to talk from my experience. And this is what I've seen in a variety of humanitarian contexts around the world.
Okay. Look, Simon Chambers from the ACT Alliance, it is really good to talk to you. Keep up the good work. And hopefully you can update us with how things are going in a week or two. Thank you.